Hi, I'm Brendia Miller, just a girl who feels like she barely survived from being 18 to 29, from an abusive marriage to divorce, pregnant with my sweet girl to the mom of an angel, and this was all before I was even 20. Since then, I married the high school sweetheart, had a sweet boy, wrote a few books, blogs, and in 9 years, 3 states, 4 cities, 13 homes, 2 hotels, 1 angel girl, 1 sweet boy, a bunch of jobs, and an insane amount of love and laughter. Here I am, 30 years old, talking to you, sharing my wisdom from the infinite lessons I have learned while still learning to navigate around the things that I haven't. Come along and navigate with me. There is room here for your joy, your grief, your hormones, your emotions, your friendships, relationships, heartbreak, and all of the other things that come along with being in your 30s. Hey 30-something gang, welcome back to the In Your 30s podcast with your host Brendia Miller. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Today we are going to dive into the concept of the village. If you're in your 30s and you have kids, you know what I'm talking about, because more than likely you too feel like the village probably does not exist in this day and age in the way that it used to, and maybe especially in the way that we grew up. I remember always having time with my cousins and having time with my aunt and my uncle, and spending time with my grandmother. And it feels like raising kids that even though you can try so hard, your efforts are just diminished, and there is just no support. There's just no real relationships. We've all heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. But do we actually allow that village to function? And could that really have to do with why we don't have one? More often than not, we reject its help, dismiss advice, and shoulder the entire weight of parenting alone. But why do we do this? Why do we do this to ourselves? And how does this affect the village wanting to be around and the relationships that can come from the village? And sometimes we expect support from people and for people to be our village when they can barely manage their own responsibilities. So why do we resist reliable help but lean on those who may even add more stress? Today we're going to talk about it. We're going to explore what the village was meant to be. We're going to explore why we reject its help and how it offers to be present, the problem of an unreliable village member, and how to rebuild a functional, effective support system so that you do feel like you have that village. Because personally, I feel like the village is still so very important, and we really need to get back to this concept. So, what was the village supposed to be originally? The metaphor of the village represents more than just a poetic idea. It was a practical and essential system that really ensured the survival and the well-being of children, of their parents, and the community at large. Because when kids are happy, parents are happy, everyone is healthy, their well-being is being looked out for, and just overall, everyone is giving each other the support that they need. Everyone collectively thrives. The village was expected to be a place of collective wisdom where multiple generations shared knowledge and experience. It was a system where no single parent bore the full weight of raising their child or their children alone. It helped to shoulder that weight and that responsibility and make parenting a little lighter, because we all know it's heavy. If you had an ideal village, parents would have reliable support for everything from childcare to emotional guidance. There were extra hands to help with tasks and even elders to pass down the knowledge that they have and the experiences that they have had. And to add to, there were peers to provide, friendship and, shared responsibility. You could lean on them. You could vent to them. You could lean on your entire village for your practical needs, like someone watching your kids while you worked, and even your emotional needs. Like I said, venting, I remember growing up and my aunt would pick us up if there was an emergency where my mom could not get there in time, or we had to get out of school early and my aunt was close by, or she got off earlier, or like she was going to be available earlier or something. Like, I remember these situations, and as a parent now, I look at it and I think, wow, I don't know if there's anyone that I could reliably trust to do that. We had to put an emergency contact down for our son in case something happened, and I put my sister, which I actually need to change now because we're not talking. The relationships aren't reliable in the relationships that should be within the village, and there's so many reasons for it in different relationships that you can't pinpoint it to one thing. But the point of the matter is, it is so important that children are surrounded by a variety of role models and caregivers, and it helps them and it helps the community develop a well-rounded sense of self. But again, in today's world, this communal structure has basically eroded, and many parents find themselves feeling isolated despite living in densely populated areas and even maybe being close to family. The modern parent often operates in a silo, managing all aspects of child rearing without basically any external support. But what would we learn if we looked back at the history of communal parenting to understand how it truly once worked? When we look back at history, parenting was never meant to be a solo act. In so many cultures, child rearing was a shared responsibility. It was shared with extended family members, neighbors, and even the broader community who played an active role. In indigenous cultures, for example, communal parenting is deeply ingrained. The responsibility of raising a child extends beyond biological parents to grandparents, aunts, uncles, and even close family friends. This model ensures that no single person is overwhelmed by the massive demands of parenthood. In many African and Asian societies, the concept of alloparenting, where individuals outside the immediate family assist in raising children, is a norm. These cultures often see parenting as a collective effort rather than an individual burden. And even in European history, multi-generational households were common. Grandparents played a significant role in raising children, while older siblings were expected to help care for younger ones. And apparently, research backs up the effectiveness of this approach. A 42-country study published in Springer found that cultures with strong communal parenting structures have significantly lower rates of parental burnout. And parents who have reliable support systems experience less stress, they make better decisions, and they report higher overall well-being. And when you look at it and you look back at your childhood and think about it, how do you think that parenting has evolved within your family network? Did your parents have more community-based support than you do today? And if so, how did that impact their ability to parent? I definitely feel like my mom had more support when she had us versus the support that I have received since having my son. I definitely feel like, there were people she could call. And it wasn't always just my aunt. It wasn't always just my grandmother. We had there's people that I see now as my family. And their kids are my family, or someone in their family is my family. I have a cousin that her name's Susie. And we're not related, but her aunt helped out my mom because she knew my mom and my grandmother when I was a kid. I grew up with them, and it was normal. It was normal for my mom to call the school and say, hey, she's going to come pick them up because I can't get there. Like, that was normal. There's not a single person I feel like I would honestly trust besides my mother-in-law to get my child, to be there for my child in an emergency case whenever she possibly can. That's one person. And it really shows, I feel like, the way that parenting has evolved throughout just 30 years. I'm 31. I'm 31 and my mom had support. I mean, honestly. And there are scientific studies, there is scientific evidence for the importance of this village. A 2016 study in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that parents with strong community support networks experience significantly lower stress levels. I wish. Research from Springer 2020 shows that children raised in community-driven environments develop greater emotional intelligence and resilience. Emotional intelligence and resilience, two things that are so very important. And the Harvard Center on the Developing Child found that children raised with multiple caregivers develop stronger problem-solving skills and social adaptability. So, how does your parenting experience compare to these historical and cultural norms that really no longer exist in this day and this age, and even in this economy? I think over time, economic, social, and technological changes have drastically reshaped family structures, and the traditional multi-generational household has just become less common as urbanization and job opportunities force families to move away from, their support systems. And additionally, cultural shifts have emphasized individualism over collective care, making parents feel solely responsible for their children's upbringing, and honestly, even bringing shame on having help and having assistance and all of these things. Like, that's shameful to people now. And it used to be a badge of honor, not only for you and your kids and your friends and your family, but your community as a whole, to have that that network and that support and that collective care unit. So, some of the key reasons that we have moved away from the village is the rise of the nuclear family. Industrialization has led to smaller, self-sufficient family units instead of bigger family units that basically rely and lean on each other. Suburbanization in the 20th century further isolated families from extended support. Economic changes with more dual income households, parents have less time to engage with their community. They have less time to even talk to their family or their friends. To be quite honest, no one has time to really even get together these days. And honestly, you can't even really afford it unless you just go hang out at someone's house. But when are we ever able to just be home? Western culture has also fostered a do-it-all mindset with hyper-individualism and making many parents feel like they must handle everything alone. It's only their responsibility. And getting help or allowing other people to step in or help or whatever is shameful. It is so shameful. Like, we literally actually put people down for having kids and living with their mom or whatever. And then, of course, with technology's impact, instead of turning to real life support, parents seek advice online, further distancing themselves from the traditional community structures that we used to have. And again, there is research on the effects of losing the village. A 2020 study in psychological science found that modern parents report much higher stress, much higher anxiety, and quite a bit more loneliness compared to past generations due to weaker community ties. And the U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy has labeled parental stress a public health crisis, emphasizing the need to rebuild support networks. And I know as a parent, I have felt like I do everything alone. Like, me and my husband do everything alone. And we have wore that as a badge of honor in past years. And as I get older, I realize, honestly, it's not a badge of honor. It's really actually sad to think of what family units have become over, like I said, even just 30 years, and the way that it has evolved so negatively. So why do we reject help despite the overwhelming benefits of support that so many of us need? Why do we resist it? There is a growing belief, like I said, that accepting help means you have to admit your failure. Social media and just modern parenting trends in general have created unrealistic expectations where parents feel judged and shamed for every single choice they make, instead of seeking advice or help as a valuable resource, as generations have done. Many view it as an attack on their parenting ability. And the thing about it is, it's not necessarily, I'm not going to say not always, but it's not necessarily coming from a malicious place. Additionally, a dangerous mindset has developed where parents believe they are the only ones who know what's best for their child. And while intuition is very valuable, so is education. This rejection of, collective wisdom leads to unnecessary struggle. And the wisdom from experienced parents and our elders and professionals has historically been an essential part of raising children. But now, many really do see it as an outdated or irrelevant concept. And there's a lot of reasons why parents will resist help and advice. Like I said, sometimes we're afraid to be judged. Sometimes it's not from a malicious place, but when you have experienced it from a malicious place, it's hard sometimes to tell the difference or know if there's an underlying reason or cause. We see it as criticism instead of advice and wisdom and knowledge. We desire, control. Some of us desire that control, and accepting help means that we have to give up control of our parenting and our decision making for our children, which is so difficult for many, many, many parents. Like, it's insane. And then we don't really see things the same way as other generations. We clash with older relatives who offer outdated advice, or, maybe the way that they come across the advice they give is not exactly productive, leading to tension or hurt feelings. This happens so often. And then changing parenting philosophies, the rise of things like gentle parenting and other modern methods has led to a rejection of traditional wisdom. And I don't know about you guys, but I personally have experienced parental decision fatigue. It gets exhausting making all the decisions. Even sometimes when you have a partner, like my husband helps with the decision making, but even just the two of us, it's still sometimes a lot because there's a lot of decisions to be made all day, every day. And a study in 2021 by the American Psychological Association found that parents who make all the decisions alone experience higher anxiety and burnout. And these things negatively impact their parenting quality, which isn't surprising because if you've ever been a single parent, then you've definitely experienced that anxiety and that burnout. And there may even be times where you're like, you know what? I was not my best self today. I was not the best mom or dad. I was not the best parent that I could be today. And I think we've all experienced that at one point or another, whether we're a single parent, whether we're married parents, whether, whatever the case may be. And it truly can be discouraging. It can be heartbreaking to end the day feeling like I did not do my best today. I was not my best self. I was not my best parent. I was maybe not my best adult. I was maybe not my best, whatever it was that I needed to do for my child or in that situation. I was not my best self. And, I do understand what that's like. I've had such a hard time lately, and today, we went to Chump's Jamboree, and literally they didn't tell us it cost and that they only take cash, so we had debit card, but we had to let him go in and sit with his team, and then we had to leave and run all over Jamestown, Tennessee, which there's nothing there, FYI, and basically look for a way to get cash out because my debit card got lost. My husband's debit card, the pin was messed up and it wouldn't let him use the pin, so he could only run it as credit, so he couldn't get cash out at the ATM. And we went to the Dollar General. We couldn't get cash back at the register because he couldn't use his pin. And so it literally was so stressful, and I was not my best self today. I did not act the best when I figured out what was going to, have to happen and all the effort it was going to be. I did not make the best example for my child, and I was not even a nice person, because I then also lashed out at his coach for like not letting us know. And sometimes I forget I'm one parent with one child, and she is one teacher with 600 million trillion kids. Like, literally, she has so many more responsibilities. She has so many more kids, and she has our kids most of the day. And I was not my best self. I had to go back. I had to circle back and apologize, because I truly was atrocious, and my behavior was absolutely disgusting. But it was one of those moments in the moment, and I'm not making an excuse, but to explain, I had it at that moment, and it had just been like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think we've all been there. And while that's not a good reason or excuse, like I said, I had to circle back. I had to apologize. And I even had to let her know, after she apologized for not letting us know, like, no, you really did not have anything to apologize for. I overreacted. I was not emotionally mature in this moment. And so it just, I could see where the fatigue literally was impacting my personality and the way that I parent, and even honestly the example that I set for my child. And don't get me wrong, back on topic, I know that when we think about the village that helps raise children, it's easy to imagine a network of people who offer support and advice and love and a helping hand when needed. But what happens when we do have a village, but that support and that village is not consistent, or isn't the kind of support that is productive or helpful? It turns out that, not all support is good support. And sometimes the people we rely on can really end up making things harder instead of easier. All support just is not equal, and it is our responsibility to determine that and then set the boundaries needed to keep that separate, keep that support away from the situation. And we often assume that any support is good support. We should be grateful. We should be thankful. Anything's better than nothing. But it's just not the case. Research shows that support has to be reliable, and reliable support is what the parents need most. And when support is inconsistent, it can have serious consequences, even worse consequences than having no support at all. And a study published in the Journal of Family Psychology found that parents who rely on unreliable support systems are more likely to experience higher levels of stress, higher levels of burnout, and emotional exhaustion. It's not just about having people around, but it's about having the right people around who follow through and meet your needs when you need them most. If you already have a lot on your plate, adding someone else that you have to babysit and watch and take care of and step by step explain and hold their hand is not going to be helpful. It's just going to add more responsibility to you, even if they're doing one or two little simple things that are supposed to be helpful. But inconsistent support just leaves you feeling anxious. It just leaves you questioning whether you can count on others in the future. It leaves you with a feeling of self-doubt because you misjudged as well, and then you trusted that person. It hurts the way you think about yourself. And while some support can be inconsistent and unreliable, It's also important to recognize that some support can actually be harmful, even if the person offering it has the best intentions. For instance, maybe you have a family member who regularly offers unsolicited advice, but their input leaves you feeling more confused than confident in your decisions or your choices. Research from the American Journal of Community Psychology suggests that this kind of support, well meaning, but ultimately very misguided, can actually undermine your confidence as a parent. Additionally, a friend who offers help but consistently cancels at the last minute may leave you scrambling for backup, which increases your stress levels and your feelings of resentment towards that person and maybe even things going on in the situation. This kind of supportive action actually can cause an emotional strain, and they often end up making the situation much worse instead of better. Harmful support isn't always obvious, though. Sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes it comes in the form of advice that doesn't suit your parenting style or promises of help that don't materialize. Unsolicited advice is one of the very good examples of harmful support. When a family member or friend constantly is offering unsolicited parenting advice, especially when it contradicts your own approaches, it can be harmful. A relative can suggest that you should just let your child cry it out, even if you prefer a more gentle approach, and that's known. And it can cause you stress, and it can cause you self-doubt, and it can make you wonder if you're doing what's best for your kids. And there's unfortunately a fine line between I do know what's best and needing help, and we have to figure out where the balance is, and where, okay, this is a situation where this person is giving unsolicited advice and basically advising that I'm doing this wrong or that I'm doing something harmful, and it's not helpful. It's stressing me out, it's upsetting me, and it's not allowing me to experience this situation in a way that I feel is the best for my child, versus I don't know what to do and I need some help. And it can be hard to find that balance. Some additional ways that support can be harmful is canceling help at the last minute. A friend or a family member who regularly offers to watch your kids but cancels at the last minute, leaving you scrambling for backup. This adds stress. This adds, more responsibilities. This adds something to the situation which you could have handled differently with more helpful support or other options, and not had to ruin your night or cancel your plans or scramble to find a replacement to watch your kids at the very last moment. Another thing is comparing parenting styles, comparing yours to theirs. Someone who frequently compares your parenting choices to their own, saying things like, well, when I raised my kids, I never did it that way, can really undermine your confidence. While they may believe they're offering helpful advice, this comparison can make you feel inadequate or judged, and it makes you doubt yourself. Any person who is disrespecting your boundaries, a person who doesn't respect your personal boundaries, whether it's showing up unannounced when you've requested space or offering unsolicited help when you've specifically asked not to be involved. This can create tension, and it creates an emotional exhaustion that it's hard to get out from under until you redirect the relationship or whatever needs to be done, whether that's, cutting contact or whatever the case may be. If someone is making critical or sarcastic remarks, someone who undermines your choices by making passive aggressive or sarcastic remarks like, "Oh, I guess you don't mind that your child is glued to screens all day." This can make you second guess your decisions, and it increases your stress. You know, if someone does want to give advice, people have options of being nice about it or coming across passive aggressive and sarcastic and just critical, and they make that choice. Ultimately, they make that choice. They know what they're saying and how it's meant to come across when they say it. They make that choice. Anyone offering help that isn't really helpful, they offer help but only provide support that doesn't really address your needs, such as suggesting a solution that doesn't align with your parenting style or offering advice on how to fix things that you feel like are already fine and under control. And it can leave you feeling more burdened. It can leave you feeling stressed. It can leave you feeling, doubtful about yourself. There's just so many ways that this is not really helpful. Being emotionally unavailable, a person who offers emotional support but is emotionally unavailable or unreliable, such as a friend who is always too busy to listen when you need to vent, or whatever it could be. It makes you feel alone. It makes you feel isolated, and it can be stressful. A family member who volunteers to help with household tasks, but then does so in a way that actually creates more work for you, such as leaving a mess or doing something inefficiently. It causes resentments and it causes frustration instead of relief. And I know that there's tons of women on TikTok that talk about this anyways within their marriage, where taking care of their husband is like taking care of another child, and that's rough. That's hard. Anyone who dismisses or invalidates your struggles, such as saying you're overreacting or it's not that hard, it can make you feel like you don't have support or you're misunderstood, and you just want someone to validate, like, you know what, I get it, you have the right to feel that way, and it just deepens the feelings of being isolated and lonely in parenthood. And a person who offers help but does so with the expectation of something in return, whether it's a favor or they, emotionally manipulate you and guilt trip and all of those things. This can turn what was meant to be a positive interaction into a very stressful obligation. These types of help can often do more harm than good, creating emotional strain, undermining confidence, and making parents feel unsupported. So things that you can do are set boundaries. This is where the importance of setting boundaries really does come in parenting, as far as relationships with other people. As much as we want a full thriving village around us, it's crucial to recognize when certain people are not able to offer the kind of support we truly need. Learning to say no, or more importantly, learning to redefine who is in our village, is essential for our well-being. According to a 2020 study in the Journal of Marriage and Family, parents who set clear boundaries with people who are unreliable or harmful tend to experience less stress and more positive family dynamics. This might mean limiting your interactions with people who don't respect your time, your parenting choices, or your need for the reliable help that you're asking for. It might also involve communicating your needs more clearly, because the people who care about you will want to support you in a way that actually works for you. Boundaries aren't about rejecting people. They're about protecting your own peace and creating space for people who are capable of offering healthy and consistent love and support, and making room for those people to do so. And for the relationship with those people to thrive when that so happens, when they have that space. And to build on that, it's important to understand the role of consistency in support. Research from the National Institutes of Health highlights that children thrive in environments where care and attention are consistent. When caregivers are inconsistent, whether because they're emotionally unreliable or frequently unavailable, it can have a lasting impact on a child's emotional and psychological development. And I think a lot of us understand this to some extent because when you have kids, when you have infants, when you have toddlers, they tell you all the time, children thrive from a routine. Children will do better with routine and consistency, and they will understand the concepts that you're teaching them better, and so on and so forth. So I think we do understand this to a level, but we don't always apply it to every level, basically. Inconsistent support can also make a parent feel emotionally depleted, especially when the parent is forced to constantly pick up the slack for unreliable helpers. And when I say the slack, I mean the people who volunteer, the people who offer, the people who sign up, or even your spouse. Many people experience inconsistency with child rearing and household duties with their spouses as well. It's not just about getting help, it's about an emotional consistency. And if someone offers support one day and is absent the next, it can leave you feeling like you're walking on eggshells, unsure of who you can really rely on. And the truth of the matter is, we all really do thrive and need people that we can rely on. So what does this mean for building our village? Because it's not just enough to have just anyone around. It's about choosing people who genuinely care, who can be reliable, who know how to, respect the boundaries that you set. Research shows that parents who feel supported by reliable and empathetic people are more likely to have better mental health. They're more likely to have stronger relationships and a more positive outlook on parenting. So it's time to be intentional about who we let into our village. It might mean we even have to set limits with family members who aren't supportive, or distance ourselves from friends who just don't consistently show up. And again, the consistency comes with what you are promising and what you are saying you will do. It's not an entitlement. You're not entitled to this person's help or this person's time. But generally, when you tell someone you're going to do something, you should be pretty consistent and follow through. This isn't about creating a smaller village, but it's about creating a healthier one. A healthier one for you, and a healthier one for your kids, and a healthier one for the kids that you love outside of your kids, or the people that you love outside of your kids. Because sometimes we are the problem in someone's village, just as well as someone can be the problem in our own. It's about having a quality village over a certain amount of people. Quality over quantity is the key. In the end, it's essential to remember that the right kind of support doesn't just help, it sustains. The people who make up our village should be the ones who show up when they say they will, and respect our boundaries, and offer help that truly lightens the load and doesn't add more weight. Saying no to unreliable or harmful support is an act of self-care. It's okay to protect your peace. It's okay to protect yourself and choose who gets a seat at your table. After all, parenting isn't just about having a village. It's about having the right village. Not a village, the right village. So when we think about being part of someone else's parenting village, it's not just about being there physically. It's about how we show up emotionally, offering support in a way that truly helps that person. And if you're going to offer advice, or assistance, it's crucial to do so in a way that's encouraging, respectful, and thoughtful, especially when it comes to offering advice that lifts up rather than overwhelms or undermines. I think one of the most important parts of the foundation of being a supportive village member is listening first. Before you offer advice, before you start, offering solutions, take the time to really listen to the parent's concerns. One of the most helpful things that you can do is create a space for them to vent or share their feelings without immediately jumping in with solutions or feeling judged. Sometimes as parents, we just need to feel heard and feel like our feelings are validated. And that can be just as powerful as giving out advice. Instead of saying, oh, just try this method I used, it'll work for sure. Try something more like, I hear you. It sounds like you're really struggling with this right now. I've been through something similar when I was raising my kids. Would you like to hear what helped me, or would you like to talk more about how you're feeling? We can maybe find a solution that pertains to the way that you want to do it, or we can do other options that maybe you can consider, think about, research, and explore on your own or with assistance. It is considerate to really offer what they're needing, and sometimes we just have to ask. Sometimes we have to ask, hey, what do you need from me in this situation? Do you need an ear? Do you need a shoulder? Do you need, someone to wipe some tears? Do you need advice? Do you need money? Do you need food? What do you need specifically? Tell me clearly, and I will provide that. When it comes to giving advice, if that person says, yeah, I would love your advice, it's crucial to do so in a way that makes it feel like an offer, not a mandate, not an order, not an end-all be-all situation, whatever. Avoid phrasing that assumes the parent is doing something wrong or that they need fixing. Parenting is not one size fits all. Everything doesn't work for every kid, every parent, every situation. It just doesn't. So we have to recognize that what worked for one person, specifically what worked for us, may not work for someone else. And honestly, even what worked for your first child may not work for your second or your third. So really, this is a good concept and a good thought process to have even in your own parenting. But instead of saying, you should really just do it this way, trust me, it's the best way, try, I have found that this method worked for me. But I know every kid is different, so if you're open to it, maybe it could help with what you're going through, or if you're open to doing more research. This is how I started my research journey on this topic, and just offer it to them gently and without assumptions. Just because something is going wrong in parenting or something is happening with a child that a parent cannot figure out doesn't necessarily mean it's their fault. Life is literally about learning, and we just don't ever know everything. Make sure that before you offer your advice, you always ask for permission. Some people don't want it. Just to be honest, they don't really want your advice. And other people may not even be able to carry your advice in this moment. They may not be able to accept your advice in this moment. But doing so shows respect for the other person's autonomy and avoids the feeling of being overrun with unsolicited advice. And we all know the feeling. There's been so many times that I have seen people say, hey, I don't want any more advice, because basically that parent is overrun with it. And it also gives the parent the space to choose if they want the help and when they want the help. Instead of launching into advice right away, Say, I've been thinking about what you said earlier, and I have a suggestion that helped me. Would you be open to hearing it? And this gives the parent the power to say no if they're not ready for your advice, or if they're just not interested. We've all been given advice by somebody who should not be giving us advice. We all know the feeling. Sometimes supporting someone also means just recognizing and affirming their efforts. Parenting is very freaking hard. And often parents feel like they're not doing enough, or that they're struggling, they're not, kind enough, they're not loving enough, they don't have enough time, whatever the case may be. So when you offer advice, pair it with words of encouragement that recognizes their hard work that they're already putting in. Instead of just pointing out a problem, say, it sounds like you've been doing a great job juggling everything. It's not easy, and I really admire how you're handling it. If you're open to some ideas, here's what I found helpful. Something very easy, very simple, but kind can really, truly offer more support than I think people understand. And at some point, we have to respect their parenting style and remember that every parent has their own approach, and that's okay. If someone asks for your opinion, offer it respectfully, understanding that they may have different values or techniques even than you do. It's important not to assume that your way is the only way. Instead of saying, well, I would never let my kids do that, try, I can see why you'd make that choice for your family. I personally try this method, but I know it's not really for everyone. And the theme across all of these examples is the way that you come about it, the things that you say, the wording that you use, all of these things. One of the quickest ways to harm someone's confidence as a parent, or even the relationship that you have with that person, is to criticize and judge their choices. If you disagree with something they're doing, approach it in a way that opens the door for a healthy discussion rather than shutting it down. Instead of saying that's a bad idea or you did this the wrong way, try, I haven't tried that myself, but I know some people have had different experiences with it. Maybe we could explore some options together. And then again, sometimes being helpful doesn't mean offering advice at all. It's about offering practical hands-on support. For example, you could volunteer to help with a task if the parent is struggling with keeping their house clean, or, laundry, or meal prepping, babysitting, running errands, whatever they may need. Offering your time can be just as valuable as giving advice, and often it's actually what parents really need the most. We really need hands-on villages more than we need a village to speak to us and give us advice. So instead of saying, let me know if you need help with anything, try, I'd love to come over and watch the kids for a couple hours so you could take a break or get things done. How does Saturday sound? This is something easy, something simple, and even sometimes just doing things together, watching your kids together can even be a amazing way to hands-on support another parent, another mom, another dad, whatever the case may be. Parents can feel so overwhelmed, and it's one of the best things that you can do to really offer that support and to remind them of the positive aspects of their parenting journey. Instead of focusing on what isn't working, highlight their successes. Even if they're small, even if they're freaking almost non-existent, anything is better than nothing, and it builds their confidence. Instead of focusing on the challenges, say, I love seeing how you have connected with your little one. I love the relationship that you all have. It's so clear how much they love you. It's so clear how much they lean on you. You're doing an amazing job, and I'm so impressed with how you handle everything on your plate. Sometimes we actually really have it under control. We just feel like we don't, and hearing that we do, or hearing the things that we are doing right, and hearing that encouragement and hearing that positivity really makes us feel more confident in the decisions we're making and the way that we are doing things. And reliability is a key part of being a helpful village member. If you offer help, make sure you follow through. Like I said, it's not about being entitled to everyone in your village at any time you need them for any of your needs. It's about the people in your village that say, hey, I'm willing to step in here or help here or do this or whatever. It's about making sure that those people are people who follow through and come through when you need them, because consistency is what builds trust, and it's what helps the parent feel confident that they can rely on you when they need your support. And especially if you have offered said support. So if you commit to helping with something, whether it's picking up groceries or watching the kids, ensure that you are reliable. If something comes up, communicate early and offer alternatives. You would not want someone last minute canceling on you or last minute not showing up for you on a regular basis. So you should not do that to other people who depend on you and you have offered your support to. And then one of the things I think is so important is when we offer advice or support, avoid turning the conversation back to your own experiences all the time. While sharing your story can be very helpful, it's important to let the focus remain on the parent and their situation and what their needs are. Instead of saying things like, when I had my kid, I did this and it worked great, try, I can't imagine how challenging that must be for you right now. I did try something similar once and it really helped me. Would you like to hear about it, or would you rather just talk about how you're feeling right now? This is very important and a very important moment to keep in mind, that it's really a priority to use you statements, not I statements. I, when you're looking at perspective, not experience. And you, when you're offering support or when you're offering to open a door to your experiences. I can't imagine. That's it. That's your perspective. You cannot imagine how challenging it must be for you right now. Instead of things like, oh yeah, I've been through that. That was so hard. I had such a hard time with that. Like, do you see how different the feeling is and how different it makes you feel thinking about someone saying that to you? Being a supportive member of someone's parenting village isn't just about offering advice all the time. It's about being present. It's about offering encouragement. It's about showing up in a way that respects the parent's choices and their needs. By listening first, offering help gently, and being consistent, we can all be the kind of village member who makes a positive impact on the parenting journey. So when we show up with empathy, with patience, and respect, we help lift each other up rather than adding pressure or stress or bringing them down. So we need to focus on building each other up one supportive step at a time, and not just having the right village members, but also being the right village member for other people. Today we've explored the complexities of building and maintaining a strong parenting village. We've talked about how not all support is created equal, and how well-intentioned advice or help can actually be harmful if it's not given with care, respect, and understanding. But we've also discussed how, as members of each other's village, we can offer real help and real meaningful support and be consistent, whether it's through listening, offering advice gently, respecting boundaries, or simply being there as we have offered and are needed. As parents, we need a village. Every single one of us needs people we can lean on, because parenting is so heavy. People who lift us up, offer a helping hand, and people who just generally cheer us on. But it's also important to set boundaries with those who may not be able to offer the type of support we need. Ultimately, Building a village isn't just about finding the right people, it's about cultivating healthy, respectful relationships that help us grow together. Remember, it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to say no. It's okay to seek out the kind of support that nurtures you and your family. And at the end of the day, parenting is a shared experience, and together we can create a village for ourselves and for others that makes all of us stronger. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you found it helpful, I'd love for you to share it with someone in your own village and someone who could benefit from it. As always, if you have thoughts, questions, or experiences you would like to share, reach out. We would love to hear from you. And until next time, take care, be kind to yourself, and remember, you do not have to parent alone in the right village.